Grand Theft Auto. I've said it a million times now, but the 3D era titles set the benchmark for non-linear gameplay, mature themes and pop culture, revolutionizing video games forever. But by the mid-2000s, a new generation of consoles were being released, and the gaming landscape was becoming even more mature. In 2005, Rockstar San Diego created a new game engine cleverly named the Rockstar Advanced Game Engine, or RAGE, designed to set them up to this day as of this review. With advancement of technology comes slower development times, and with an open world concept that was a lot more complicated, another Grand Theft Auto title would not be for another few years. After Rockstar North took gamers to Liberty City, Vice City, and the state of San Andreas, traveling back in time and setting up moments that gamers will cherish for a long time. The Edinburgh developers would travel back to the present, put away the time machine, return to Liberty City, and take a more sophisticated approach, creating a dark and realistic styled city, without the forests, mountains and deserts, and every single square foot or meter doesn't feel like an empty space on the map. Meanwhile, Rockstar's other subsidiaries would make games between development including Table Tennis, Midnight Club 3, Manhunt 2, The Warriors, Bully, and Rockstar Leeds even developed a couple of GTA spin-offs for the PlayStation Portable, based on previous maps to keep the interest in the series high. That's a lot of games in 4 years. But at E3 2006 during the Microsoft panel, Grand Theft Auto 4 was officially announced by Peter Cross, who showed off a tattoo of the logo on his arm, and the first official trailer was released on March 2007. Maybe things will be different. For the next year, 16 additional trailers based on characters, landmarks, and the gameplay were released. And combined with murals, commercials, wanted posters, and its own website, the hype was extraordinary. But although it was scheduled for an October release in 2007, just like every GTA title that came before, including the handheld ones, technical issues and to avoid competing with the likes of Halo 3, Call of Duty 4, Modern Warfare, and Mass Effect, delayed the release.
Now it's always something.
Always something.
Always something, yes.
But with 4 years of development and $100 million spent, Grand Theft Auto 4 was released for the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 on April 2008, and the PC in December, and sold 3.5 million copies on the first day, setting the record for the fastest entertainment product to gross $500 million, a record that would be broken a few years later by, you guessed it, another Grand Theft Auto title. With critic scores and sales numbers through the roof, it was another job well done for Rockstar Games. Now that I come to think of it, I have a ridiculous number of hours clocked on GTA 4, like it's up there with San Andreas, among the video games I played the most. Now that we've reached its 10th anniversary, yes, really, which means we should be expecting a mobile port soon, is it worth playing now? We're looking at the PlayStation 3 version.
You remember, during the war, we did some bad things. And bad things happened to us.
Niko Bellic, who was born in Yugoslavia, fought in the Civil War as a teenager and became emotionally scarred from the experience.
I was very young and very angry. Maybe that is no excuse.
But his life would change forever when he was part of a 15-man squad that was ambushed, killing all but 3, including Niko. Believing it was a setup, he would spend the next decade searching for the other 2, planning to kill the one responsible. After the war, his cousin Roman was sent to Liberty City in the United States by Niko's mother to pursue the American dream, while Niko stayed in Europe to work for Ray Bulgarin in the criminal underworld. But after a cargo ship he was on sunk in the Adriatic Sea, Bulgarin believes that Niko did this intentionally and goes after him. Combined with his cousin living the American dream in Liberty City according to his emails, and one of the people he's looking for is also living there, Niko joins the merchant navy aboard the Platypus cargo ship sailing to Liberty City, which is where the game begins. After Niko arrives on the docks with Roman waiting, and meeting each other for the first time in a decade,
This is the mansion?
Make yourself at home. What's mine is yours.
in Niko's eyes, it turns out Roman isn't as successful as he claimed in the messages, owning a cab depot, a small apartment, and heavily in debt with some gangsters. Niko helps Roman with the cab business, making fares and dealing with loan sharks, eventually going deeper into the criminal underworld of Liberty City, to find the friends that possibly betrayed him and pursue his own American dream.
Welcome to America. La Scala Stella Dejava.
bush cow.
Nico Bellic is one of the most developed protagonists of the GTA series. Not necessarily the best, but the most realised. Being from another continent where all he's done in his life is try to survive, he always thinks of himself as the only sane human being in the city, like Jimmy Hopkins or John Marston.
Look, I got money. I got money.
In which case you've got help.
That is until he gets in a car. On the flip side, his cousin Roman is all about chasing the American dream.
All I needed was one good guy. One good guy I could do well. Not take over the world, but do okay.
Having these two as cousins with different personalities, whatever they face, they're family so they stick together regardless. It's an interesting concept which might explain why it's been used more than once in previous titles. Combined with its themes of immigration, corruption and betrayal, GTA 4 is by far the darkest in the series.
I know enough about you, your cousin, your friends. I know a lot of people around you end up in jail.
Some maybe.
But that's the same all over town. This is a dying game.
As you can probably tell, there are absolutely no appearances or even mentions of previous characters. As the 3D universe expanded, it relied on more characters from the predecessors to expand the story, and it felt like there was a new story being told on each island or area. It's not a bad thing. I even said in my San Andreas review that it adds creativity and nostalgia, but with a new story, map and characters, the writers couldn't rely on them anymore. The whole game feels connected with additional characters being introduced as Nico moves up the ladder in Liberty City, but most, if not all of them, stay relevant from start to finish.
Of course, like us all.
Like us all.
Partly because it's set in one city this time. But point is, there's enough backstory for a potential Rockstar spin-off, and so much in the middle of it all, that DLC has been released to expand the plot from different perspectives. Okay, I know it was planned in advance, why else would these characters interact in such crucial moments, but Rockstar have come a long way from GTA 3 where cutscenes were basically do this task. At the beginning when Nico arrives in Liberty City, there are other events happening on that cargo ship that eventually drive the plot all the way to the end. And a lot of the characters that make a cameo in one or two missions play a major role in the episodes of Liberty City. It is then you'll respect just how much effort has been put into Liberty City, the real protagonist. In fact, you can play the expansions before this one and it doesn't feel like there's any information you're missing. GTA 4 marks the first time in a while when recognizable talent took a back seat. Ricky Gervais and Cat Williams, who perform in the comedy club as one of the activities you can do, which I'll get to, are the most recognizable names you're going to get. I said in my Vice City review that having a lot of celebrity voices adds to the movie TV presentation, because that's what Rockstar were aiming for. But this time, along with the difficulties of dealing with different personalities, they didn't want a recognizable voice distracting you from the story, because the game wants you to pay attention to what's going on. It gets especially intense after you reach the last dozen story missions. The acting in this game is incredible, which probably explains why cutscenes are so long. Particularly the ones with Mikhail Foston and John Gravelli.
I know it's a terrible tragedy.
I wouldn't say that. There's also a lot of unique dialogue in-game. Examples include retrying a mission, characters expressing their love for a certain radio station, and each type of fail has its own phone call, which I didn't even realize upon reviewing this game. It stops you from thinking it's Groundhog Day when you play it. We're all so accustomed to GTA 5, we forget just how good the storytelling and dialogue is in GTA 4. I do find it kind of out of place when you have a protagonist with this much character development in an open world where what you see is possible. It's like two fantastic ideas fighting against each other, but I suppose you could say the same thing about some of the protagonists of the GTA series in general. The least I can say is that the story is extremely underrated, but it makes sense to forget about it because Grand Theft Auto is about giving as much freedom to the character as possible.
So you in, big guy? Or we're gonna have to kill you.
Well, since you put it that way, I mean...
Right.
Good.
All right.
Let's go.
Let's do this.
With the writers and designers traveling to the city their map is based on for research, they wanted a realistic presentation because they're working with more powerful systems. Now gameplay aside, if you're going to go from this to this in a few years, why would you not want to sophisticate it? When I saw this for the first time, it was mind-blowing. This isn't just an expanded GTA 3 Liberty City, this one is completely different. It goes back to the one city with 3 islands in which you have to unlock one at a time by completing the story missions.
There's been a big scare and you can't go across the bridges so good.
But you also have additional mini-islands based on areas in New York to fit more notable landmarks.
It's a world of opportunities.
Such as?
The detail put into the city, the shadowing, the satirical adverts and news, buildings can be entered without loading times, more traffic on screen, and the volume of said traffic varies depending on where you are on the map. It demonstrated the power of the Rage engine. Some of these landmarks can even be interacted with. Don't let that sign tell you what to do. Everyone who's played GTA 4 has done this at least once. However, you are on an island where 90% of it is just buildings. The map size is smaller than San Andreas, it's dark to the point where you need to adjust the brightness settings, and there appears to be less color than a broken printer. Back then, because it was the first time we played Grand Theft Auto in HD, we thought this was amazing. But if you've never played this before and only plan on letting off steam, there's a good chance that the city can feel extremely repetitive. Supposedly, this was meant to be a Liberty State with areas outside of the city which would help liven things up, with a few clues confirming that fact. And I wouldn't be surprised if some of these tunnels or roads that are under construction are meant to connect to more than just the city. Thing is, the idea of a former soldier who fought in a war seeking revenge in a world like GTA 5 Los Santos doesn't really fit. GTA 4 Liberty City is an acquired taste. You either love it or hate it. I doubt that the developers would have came up with something like GTA 5 because they weren't as familiar with the 7th generation hardware. Remember, this is only the second game to use the Rage engine, and the first one was a table tennis game. A good one, I might add. Maybe the city looks as it does so it can leave the player to break the status quo. I mean, that's not to say that GTA 4 has no sense of humor at all.
Hi-ya! Brucey, you got to chill. For real.
It has plenty of references to pop culture,
Wait! I'm walking here!
but they're more subtle than previous titles. It's trying harder to be its own story. Either that or the seriousness of the presentation appears as so. And the ragdoll physics? Some of the best of any video game I've ever played. In addition to the Rage engine, it also uses the Euphoria to deal with these physics. It blurs the lines between realistic and over the top, whether it's falling down a set of stairs, hanging on for dear life, or simply learning to fly. There's something about it that makes it so amusing. And don't get me started on that swing set.
What?
The map of the city is there in the menu as you'd expect, along with the locations of safe houses, restaurants, activities, mission markers, etc. However, whenever you set a waypoint, it gives you a navigation on the fastest legal routes on the map HUD. If you're in the middle of the second big island, Algonquin, you'll notice that the route isn't as straightforward as you'd expect. As you can see from the signs, it's a one-way street, but being Grand Theft Auto, you can still drive through it even though the GPS says otherwise. That's a clever feature, and as repetitive as the city can be, at least you'll never get lost. As you can see here, safe houses have no garages, but parking spots which save your vehicle. You can get to it faster this way, but because it's right next to the road with oncoming traffic going past, sometimes they can hit your vehicle, moving it out of place, and you'll go back to your safe house thinking it just disappeared for no reason. Ridiculous.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Sure.
The only positive thing I can take out of these parking spots is that you can land a helicopter there as well. The biggest problem with Grand Theft Auto 4, and why it's so overlooked nowadays, is the lack of content and customization options. Remember in San Andreas when you got to purchase properties, explore forests, deserts, mountains, tune your vehicle, change your hairstyle, and the progress you made affected your abilities? None of that stuff is in GTA 4. Even by 2008 standards, this feels very shallow. You do get to wear different pieces of clothing which are both purchasable and unlockable, but the variety can be compared to Vice City, although that might not be too much of a bad thing, because choosing what to wear is even more monotonous than San Andreas. At least that game had some sort of sub-menu where you can choose the type of clothing and the outlet it's from. But here, you can only scroll left and right to select the clothing you want. And if you want a whole outfit, like a suit which you need for certain missions, you have to scroll past all torso-based clothes first. In short, it takes around half a minute just to choose what you want ASAP. This is the worst in the GTA series as it pertains to character customization. I know GTA 3 didn't have it at all, but San Andreas illustrated how far the series had come, and the fourth game just feels like a huge step back.
So that's the way it is.
Yes, that's the way it is.
Changing your outfit isn't the only thing you can do in a safe house. To save your progress, which obviously advances time by 6 hours, instead of a floating icon, you simply go to bed. A minor change, but one safe feature introduced here that we really take for granted, this. Anyway, there's also in-game TV if you have no life, and some of the more expensive looking safe houses come with a laptop, giving you access to the internet. There are also internet cafes on each island, but you must pay a mammoth $1 to use it. There are possibly close to 100 pages, which adds to the satirical nature of GTA. But only a few have a useful purpose, including emails, online dating, and downloading ringtones and wallpapers for your phone. Yeah, instead of only popping up whenever you answer a call, mobile phones are multi-purpose, so you can also receive messages and change ringtones and wallpapers.
Maybe one day you get a premium quality one like mine.
The phone can also be used to call emergency services, which you'll need to do in a couple of the story missions, and organize optional hangouts with your friends.
Hey, cousin, how about we go bowling?
We bowl like two cousins in American sitcom.
As you progress through the story, some of the characters you work with will become your friends, and you can do activities across Liberty City including pool, bowling, and darts. While driving to your destination, you get a deeper insight to the character's backstory through their conversations, and because they're so compelling, it's interesting to listen to. Although these activities add variety, as you all probably know, they'll ask you so many times it drives you crazy.
Nico and Roman, we should go and get drunk together.
Roman, I'm nervous enough about driving a truck full of explosives around the city for Mikhail Faust.
But if you hang out with a friend a certain number of times, you unlock special abilities or favors including free transport, discounted weapons, car bombs, and backup, so all that bowling is eventually worth something. Especially participating in these activities with your friends, in addition to winning them, is part of completing 100% of the whole game. I know I said before that the city looks depressingly boring by today's standards, but there's more to do here than meets the eye. The checklist of things to do are similar to the predecessors, including stunt bonuses, vigilante, and car deliveries. But there are little touches that make completing these less tedious and necessary. The vigilante missions, for example. If you get one enemy, it autosaves, so if you're wasted, you don't have to do it all over again. And if you complete a certain stunt bonus, it's marked so it lets you know whether you've done that stunt bonus already. Also, there's an in-game website giving you the locations for the flying rats and random encounters, with the latter making its introduction to the series. Yeah, whenever you're close, a character pops up on the map HUD, and you have the option to encounter them, sometimes more than once, which triggers a mini mission, and it adds a bit of personality to the city, which is what it desperately needs. Reaching 100% will give you the keys to the city. Okay, you also get unlimited supply for your ammo arsenal, but not unlimited ammo. I think it's pointless if you've already completed everything, and because it's a lot easier to pick enemies off, you won't be using that much ammo anyway. The basic control mechanics from the 3D universe are in GTA 4, but have been fully revamped for the better. Aiming at enemies, for example. Holding the aim button locks onto the closest enemy, obviously, but you still have minor control of the crossfire, allowing for leg or headshots, and with a flick of the analog stick you can lock onto another enemy. Okay, the predecessors allowed headshots, but here it's easier to pull off regardless of PC or console. As you can tell, it's very hard to explain, but if you played it, you know what I mean. And instead of running straight at the enemies head on, you have a proper cover system that you can use on either walls or ledges, and fire weapons accurately without being fully exposed to gunfire. The shooting mechanics feel very different to the 3D titles, and that's why it felt fresh back in 2008. Taking cover, ragdoll physics, and Nico Bellic trash talking.
Having a good day!
The combat system has also been reworked. You can punch, kick, block, dodge, and counter. And thanks to the ragdoll physics, I wonder how many times I've mentioned it already, the hits can look brutal.
Not so tough no more, are you?
Oh! You going to get up?
especially when using a baseball bat. Like San Andreas, you can climb on and jump up ledges. It's a bit slower and sometimes you have to be in the exact position, but anything's better than this. You can even climb up the stairs faster by jumping non-stop. It's probably a glitch, but it's useful. And finally, swim without drowning instantly. But like Vice City Stories, you can't dive underwater. Before GTA 5 and Red Dead Redemption came out, GTA 4 had the best controls of any Rockstar game out there. However, I say this in regard to moving around on foot. The same cannot be said for the vehicles. Okay, you can look at it in two ways. Do you praise the vehicle handling for its realism or criticize it for its lack of control? For example, the way they take damage from minor scratches to grenade explosions or collisions. They're also equipped with changeable headlights. You can humorously fly through the windscreen. Seriously, has Nico ever heard of a seatbelt? And the drive-by shooting mechanics have been refined. There's a crossfire allowing you to shoot anywhere with precision, as well as being able to use more than just an automatic weapon. There are a lot of positive things to say about the vehicles, but the handling, that leaves a lot to be desired. Now I know you can't turn while braking in real life, but it's a video game. Sometimes you need to take liberties to make it a more enjoyable experience.
Look, I need more than that to go on.
They should have made an even balance between the two, because from an aesthetic perspective, the vehicles are so much better than the 3D universe. But I think people would complain less about the controls feeling less realistic than feeling as realistic as possible. They just don't work in a Grand Theft Auto game. But like I said before, it's a matter of preference. The least I can say is that the designers clearly put a lot of effort and attention to detail into the vehicles.
Will you start?
However, one thing we can all agree on, taxis, or cabs, or as Nico calls them,
Yellow car!
Are the most efficient vehicles in Liberty City and make life easier to the point of being borderline cheap to use. Sometimes I would even stop on the middle of the bridge to get in one, because you can waypoint almost anywhere on the map and reach your destination in seconds because you can skip the real-time journey. Yes, you need to pay, but it's more than worth it. Therefore, it kind of defeats the purpose of having trains, because they only reach a certain destination, and you're never going to run out of money to the point where you can't afford taxis, because you can only use them when you reach a certain point in the story and already have plenty of money to spend. After Liberty City banned Tony and Claude from using anything that can hover off the ground, the developers decided that it was time to finally implement flying in Liberty City. The only flying vehicles are helicopters, which is fair enough because the map is too small for planes. I mean, you can fly from the airport to the prison in 1 minute and 12 seconds. Yes, I timed it. But no parachutes? Yes, I know Luis Lopez eventually had access to them, but even in storyline, Nico, a former soldier, would know how to use a parachute. And what if I'm in the air and need to get out fast? If San Andreas already had parachutes, why not this game? It also doesn't help that the height limit is lower than the tallest building in Liberty City. Like the controls, the wanted system has been radically changed. If you attract a wanted level, a search bubble centers on your position, as indicated on the map HUD. The higher the wanted level, the bigger the bubble, the higher volume of police activity, and the more aggressive they are to stop you. So you can evade them regardless of wanted level, but it's challenging even on 3 stars. Because like the predecessors, you can go to a pay and spray and eliminate the wanted level immediately. However, you can't drive in if the police see you, which is fair. This is an ingenious wanted system, and like Bully, people around you can also be arrested. The only thing I don't like about it is that on the second island, Algonquin, there's an officer on almost every corner, making it harder to evade the law than necessary. However, on the same island, if you drive on the subway tracks underground, it'll be impossible for the police to see you. I tested it out to see if I can evade 6 stars, and it worked. Trains might not be that meaningless after all. While we're on the subject of cheating, codes can be entered using your phone by dialing the correct number. The only types of cheats include health, weapons, wanted meters, vehicles, or weather changes, which is handy if you're sick of ending up in the hospital every 2 minutes, but like the city, there's not much variety. And because cheats are activated on your phone, if you get hit, the menu cancels out, so be careful. I only ever use cheat codes when I'm free roaming. I'll do my best not to repeat myself, but as fantastic as the story is in this game, it takes a while for it to pick up. I know I said before that the controls made it feel fresh in 2008, but now that it's been a decade and we have GTA 5, the missions feel lightweight. But that's what happens when you take away a lot of the features from San Andreas that could have been in GTA 4. So, putting these missions on hold is inevitable. Suddenly, it turns into a completely different game. As I mentioned so many times already, the ragdoll physics are what make it so entertaining. When you're flying around the city, looking at the streets below, and then decide to jump down and start a crime spree,
And all the while, people are trying to kill us. What is fun?
despite being set on a map with 90% buildings with realistic vehicle controls, it feels twice as big as it actually is, and the gameplay is still as aggressive as you choose it to be. I can rampage for at least an hour and not get bored. But not everybody agrees, as Grand Theft Auto 4 caused controversy even before it was released, with its adult content becoming a designated scapegoat in numerous criminal lawsuits, bans and censorship. This was the last game Jack Thompson used to file lawsuits against Take-Two Interactive and Rockstar Games. The publisher actually sued Thompson first to prevent him from declaring GTA 4 as a public nuisance, a year before release, and after Thompson responded with a countersuit, both parties eventually settled. Thompson was not allowed to attempt to ban games released by Rockstar, but can still work as an activist against video games and as a consultant for video game related lawsuits. But that's not the most controversial part of GTA 4. As I mentioned previously that you can do activities with Nico's friends, one of them is drinking, and after you walk out the bar, the camera is shaky and blurry, and you have the option to drive while intoxicated.
Driving in this state? Not a good idea.
Mothers Against Drink Driving was highly critical of this gameplay feature and requested the ESRB to change the game's rating from mature to adults only. Rockstar stated that people who play this game understand that drink driving is irresponsible. This was the next in the GTA series after the hot coffee fiasco, in which Rockstar had to recall all copies of San Andreas worldwide just to fix the problem. Combined with the controversies surrounding their other games, Grand Theft Auto 4 attracting controversy was inevitable. But as we all know, this is Grand Theft Auto we're talking about, a series of games that let you drive, fly, shoot and platform on a giant map without a linear path. This level of freedom and jump to HD made Grand Theft Auto 4 an instant success. Did I mention 3.5 million copies sold on the first day in 2008? But to answer the question, is it worth playing now? Well, it depends on what you want from a Grand Theft Auto game. If rampaging is all you'll ever do, even back then, the predecessors were the better option in that regard. But if you love captivating storytelling with highly developed characters, look no further.
We can pick the game, Nico Bellic, but we cannot change the rules.
However, because it takes itself so seriously, it overshadows the gameplay to an extent, and therefore it barely scratches the surface of what San Andreas was able to achieve in terms of content. But because it's been over a decade, and there are over 25 million copies of this game out there, it's cheap for what you get. It's still an open world action adventure, and it's more innovative than it gets credit for. It introduced the cover system. The story is deep and poignant. It has some of the best ragdoll physics of any video game I've ever played, and as you can probably tell, that theme is epic. It brought Grand Theft Auto into another era, and despite its flaws compared to other titles in the series, I love this game as much as I did when I played it for the first time all those years ago.
So this is what the dream feels like. This is the victory we longed for.